Around 1995, British developers Team 17 released Worms, a turn-based strategy game similar to games like Scorched Earth, where the objective was to defeat the opposing team with a variety of different weapons, while using the destructible environments to your advantage. The hook, of course, is that instead of tanks, you controlled cartoonish worms with quite the personality. Needless to say, Worms was a hit, and has had quite the successful legacy over the years, thanks to its fun gameplay and humorous 2D art style and voice work. In 2003, however, Team 17 decided to take the franchise in uncharted territories, a place the brave worms have never been before: the third dimension. Released in March a year later after the other consoles, Worms 3D hit the big green as a special edition, with new modes, camera options, and online play. Now, I've briefly dabbled in the Worms series before, mostly playing matches of Worms Armageddon with friends years ago, but I never went to the third dimension with them. However, thanks to my good friend and patron Stefan, who requested Worms 3D this month, it's time to remedy that and see if the third dimension actually suits these little wormy buggers. As stated earlier, the goal of Worms is to take out your squirmy opponents using your team of worms in randomly generated stages, wielding a variety of tools and weapons like bats, shotguns, rifles, explosives, the holy hand grenade,
the kids love this one,
fire punch,
so you can
bazookas, and more unconventional means of attack. There's also the tools at your disposal like jetpacks, ninja ropes, binoculars, bridges, teleporting, all within a small time limit for each turn. If you're skilled enough with your shots, you can even use the destructible environments against your enemies. Before getting into the thick of it, you can customize your team of worms by giving them unique names, voices, flags, and gravestones when they die a hilarious death, which is a staple of the series. The main mode of Worms 3D, Campaign, has you playing through a series of levels, each with their own conditions for winning, ranging from pretty easy to crazy hard. Winning medals in these challenges is how you unlock the extras, like more stages, weapons, voices for your worms, and more. Of course, there's also quick matches, the Worm Pot, which is kind of like a game randomizer, local multiplayer, and online multiplayer. So basically, I've just described any Worms game you've probably played. But what makes 3D so unique? Well, the 3D. Being the first to use polygonal visuals, Worms 3D does handle a bit differently. Your camera is a standard third person, but you can go into first person or a blimp-like view to see your surroundings better. This may be a bit off-putting for longtime fans of the series, but I didn't have a problem with controlling my wormy army. Visually, I think Worms looks pretty good in the third dimension. The stages range from bright and colorful to gritty and dark, thanks in part to the weather effects going on like rain and snow and such. As for the worms themselves, I can't lie that they may look a bit off.
You ever tell you look like a penis with a little hat on?
But Team 17 did a good job bringing the animated look into 3D. If there were ever a Worms CG movie today, and considering that we now have a sequel to the Angry Birds movie, this would be a good idea of how it would look, and I'm okay with that. Speaking of okay, the music you hear in the game is, well, just okay. Pretty much what you usually hear in other Worms titles, but that's not a bad thing, as I've enjoyed the music I've heard in the few Worms games I've played. I am happy to say that the voice acting is still just as funny as ever with the different types of voices and lines the worms say.
Stand back and watch the master at work. Phew. What's this, our kid? Belly splash!
So Worms 3D is just as the title says. It's the fun gameplay of Worms in 3D. And you know what? Not bad. True, I've grown partial to the 2D animated sprites of yesterday, and apparently so is Team 17 as they went back to the 2D look after only releasing 3 other Worms games in 3D. Worms Forts, Under Siege, Worms 4 Mayhem, and Ultimate Mayhem, which is a remake of 4 with 3's campaign. Still, even though this seems to have been more of an experiment, I do hope Team 17 tries this again one day, as Worms 3D is actually worth playing. Well, since Worms Forts and Part 4 did come out on the big green, eventually they'll come under my radar. But until that day, this is the Dali Popka saying, as always, stay green, my friends. I'll see you next time. Hey everyone, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this episode and want more of me and the Big Green, then click that subscribe button and the bell to get notified when new content arrives. I want to say a special thank you to my patrons for helping not just the channel grow, but me as a creator. You have my forever thanks. If you're interested in the channel and would like to help it grow further, consider becoming a patron today. For the cost of a soda or an item on the dollar menu, you can help myself and the channel provide the best source of Big Green programming and more. Once again, all the thanks and love.